This is one of those questions that sounds almost too obvious to ask until you actually start digging into the specifics. And then it turns into one of the most genuinely fascinating rabbit holes in ancient human life. And it involves a number that might catch you off guard. 60%. Imagine standing in a prehistoric cave, the flickering light of a small fire casting dancing shadows on the walls around you. It's night, and outside, the world is teeming with unseen dangers. Yet here, under the shelter of rock, you find clues about how ancient humans spent these night hours, and how this shaped not just their survival, but their entire way of life. Do you ever wonder what ancient humans actually did when the sun went down? And even more intriguingly, why were certain nighttime activities so consistent across different cultures and climates? Let's delve into this. Let's begin with the concept of segmented sleep, sometimes referred to in academic circles as biphasic or polyphasic sleep. This fascinating approach to sleep involved dividing the night into distinct periods of rest and wakefulness. Historical records and anthropological findings suggest that before the Industrial Revolution, many cultures would sleep in two shifts, often referred to as first sleep and second sleep. Take, for example, the writings of historian A. Roger Ekirch, who highlighted that in pre-industrial Europe, people would commonly retire to bed around 9 or 10 p.m. and sleep for about 4 hours. They'd then wake for an hour or two around midnight to engage in various activities, prayer, reading, or even visiting neighbors. This period was followed by a second sleep until dawn. Similar patterns were observed in other parts of the world, such as among the Tiv tribe in Nigeria, where this segmented sleep pattern remains prevalent. Here, people often engage in storytelling and even communal activities during the wakeful period, capitalizing on the cooler nighttime temperatures. This sounds almost counterintuitive to our modern understanding of a solid 8-hour sleep cycle, right? But now consider this. Recent sleep research suggests that segmented sleep might actually align more closely with our natural circadian rhythms. However, what's even more intriguing is that not all ancient cultures adhered to this pattern. The Inuit, for instance, adapted to the extreme light conditions of the Arctic, resting whenever possible, rather than sticking to a rigid sleep schedule. This adaptability highlights the complex relationship between environment and sleep habits. This segmented sleep pattern deeply influenced the way communities organize their nights, shedding light on how adaptable human sleep patterns really are. But here's another layer. How did ancient humans handle the inherent dangers of the night? This brings us to our second concept, night watch, alternatively known as nocturnal vigilance. Keeping watch at night was an essential survival strategy. The primeval darkness, coupled with the threat of predators, made nighttime a perilous time. Ancient communities often designated certain individuals to stay awake and keep a vigilant eye on their surroundings. For example, evidence from prehistoric campsites in Europe indicates that the night watch was a communal effort, with rotating shifts to ensure everyone got rest. Archaeologists have even discovered remains of ancient torch stands and evidence of strategic fire placement, suggesting well-organized defensive watch patterns that were likely coordinated by these night sentinels. In another instance, the San people of the Kalahari Desert would assign individuals the task of maintaining fire and keeping watch over sleeping areas, often structuring these duties based on communal needs and environmental conditions. Interestingly, not all communities relied on structured watches. The Aboriginal Australians, for instance, employed storytelling and spiritual rituals to create a protected environment, believing these practices could ward off danger. This illustrates that protection strategies varied widely, depending on the cultural context and available resources. So, the necessity of night watches underscores a crucial aspect of ancient life: the constant balance between sleep, safety, and social cohesion. But what about when communities had to move? How did they navigate the night then? Enter the concept of nocturnal navigation, sometimes described as lunar wayfinding. This was a skill honed by many ancient cultures that traveled during nighttime to avoid the daytime heat or to take advantage of cooler temperatures. Navigating by the star, the moon, and landmarks became an essential survival tool. Consider the Polynesians, who were masters of celestial navigation. Even before the advent of compasses, these seafaring people could sail across vast ocean distances by reading the night sky, relying on star paths and the moon's phases to guide them. Their navigation skills were so advanced, they could pinpoint their position relative to distant islands solely based on celestial cues. On land, the Bedouin tribes of the Arabian desert also mastered the art of nighttime travel, using star patterns and the moon to traverse the vast and featureless desert landscape. Yet, not all ancient societies were nocturnal navigators. In dense jungles or cloud-covered regions like the Amazon basin, indigenous tribes relied more on animal sounds and other environmental clues than on celestial bodies. This demonstrates the incredible adaptability of humans in using available resources to navigate their environments, whether by night or day. This ability to navigate at night not only fostered trade and interaction, but also allowed for cultural exchanges that might otherwise have been impossible. But it raises the question, what innovations emerged specifically because of these nocturnal activities? That leads us to our final concept, nighttime innovation, also known as the creativity of darkness. The night often provided a quiet, reflective space away from the bustle of daily life, fostering creativity and innovation. There's evidence to suggest that many ancient technologies and cultural practices originated from nocturnal activities. For instance, the development of advanced fire-making techniques was not just a daylight endeavor. Mastery of fire at night for warmth and protection is believed by some researchers to have been a driving force behind communal gatherings, storytelling, and even the creation of early forms of art, such as cave paintings that might have been inspired by and executed under the interplay of flickering firelight. Archaeological findings from the Lascaux caves in France, estimated to be over 17,000 years old, suggest that these intricate paintings might have been created during twilight or nighttime hours. Yet not all nighttime innovations were about creativity. Some cultures, like the Mesoamericans, developed sophisticated agricultural techniques to plant and harvest according to lunar phases, believing these cycles affected crop yields. This kind of innovation was deeply tied to nighttime observations and activities. These nocturnal innovations not only demonstrate human ingenuity, but also highlight the significance of night as a time for reflection and experimentation. Now, as we reflect on these ancient practices, how have they influenced our own modern-day activities and perceptions of night? Now, consider the concept of lunar economy, a term used by some researchers to describe the unique economic activities dictated by the phases of the moon. Ancient societies often synchronized their economic practices with lunar cycles, which played a significant role in agriculture, trade, and even social rituals. For example, ancient Chinese farmers meticulously planned their agricultural calendar around the lunar phases, believing that planting and harvesting during certain moon phases would yield better crops. Texts from the Han Dynasty, dating back to around 206 BC to 220 AD, document detailed lunar calendars that were critical for agricultural success. Similarly, the fishing communities along the coasts of the Indian Ocean relied on the moon's phases to predict tidal patterns, optimizing their fishing practices to coincide with high tide for better catches. However, not all ancient economic systems hinged on the moon. The ancient Egyptians, living in a region where the Nile's flood cycle was paramount, focused their economic activities more on the solar calendar and the annual flooding patterns, demonstrating a divergence in celestial economic reliance. This lunar economy framework reveals how celestial bodies could shape not just night activities, but entire economic systems, showing the profound impact of the night sky on human civilization. So, could these ancient lunar economies have contributed to modern economic practices? Standing once more in that ancient cave, we recognize that the flicker of firelight wasn't just a tool for survival. It was a theater for stories, a beacon for travelers, and a canvas for art. In those shadowy hours, ancient humans were busy shaping the world in ways that still resonate with us today. And that curious number, 60%, reflects the portion of our ancestors' waking life spent under the canopy of night, engaging in tasks that would not only ensure their survival, but would lay the foundations for culture and community. So, while we've traded caves for cities and firelight for electricity, the night remains a time of potential, echoing those ancient activities that continue to influence our world.